Well, hello, welcome back. It's actually the next morning and I'm up a little bit early and I wanted to work on this a little bit more, working with some of the chindi fabric. And I have this extra little piece of wallpaper left over from making the journal cover. And I thought what I'd like to do is turn it into a little hinged page. My idea here is to take this piece of lace and sew it to this strip of the chindi fabric, and then I'm going to sandwich the edge of it between my wallpaper and this paper so that when you flip it over, it'll be a journaling spot. So I'm going to head over to my sewing machine and then just sew this on, and then we'll work on the rest of it. All right, so I've sewn this piece of lace to the chindi fabric, and I kind of want to cover up this raw edge a little bit. So I've got some of this lace seam binding, and I realize I'm not making clothes. So sometimes I have to remind myself, Kathy, you're not making a wedding dress. But sometimes I just like to have the raw edges covered. I do like the way this green seam binding looks. I think that's really pretty. Just gives it a nice little bit of added interest, and it goes with the green in the leaves. Okay, now for the next step, I want to sandwich this in here like so, and then attach that piece, and then I'll have this pretty hinge that will go over the next page. So starting with some more Fabri-Tac, and all the final trimming will be done at the end. So this is just sort of anchoring it in place. Everything I'm doing here was with the chindi fabric, you could probably also do with sari silk, except that with the chindi fabric you get a lot more white of it and whiter pieces, and it's probably less expensive. But I don't know, I haven't really done a cost comparison, but I like that you get bigger pieces and more variety too. I should just use collage medium for this, but I'm almost out of it. So, okay, now all we have to do is trim it. I need to use my fabric scissors a little bit here just to get through the fabric. I'll switch. Now for good measure, I'm going to sew around the edges just to give it a little bit more interest, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I have finished sewing around this, and this is totally cute just as it is, but I want to add something to the front of this, and I thought I would add these little birds that I fussy cut out of this adorable bird field guide, Birds from South Africa. So I'm just going to finish fussy cutting around there. I like to get them started and then store them, with some of the paper, the rest of the page still on it, because some of the parts are pretty delicate, and if I just fussy cut around the whole thing, then some of the delicate parts kind of get messed up in my little bin, which is a takeout container from Thai food. There was another picture of birds. There were 3 on the branches, and I wouldn't be able to separate them, and I really wanted to use those, but they were just a little bit too big for this particular page. I think they look adorable. And I'm going to use Fabri-Tac because it's going on to the wallpaper, and I'm not sure how well the art glitter glue will stick because it's a little bit slicker of a surface. And I think it needs a word, or maybe even a phrase, but let's look for a word first. Inspire. I love that word. How about always inspire? And I don't mind that they're on different papers. I make these with my connector stamps. I think they're called connectables. Can't remember. But I'll link them below. I'll show you in just a second what they look like. So there's these little stamps that you can just pull apart and make different words. So I have a couple of sets of the lowercase and a set of the uppercase. And they're really fun to use. And I like that you can make any word you want. And I think to make these stand out, I'm going to go ahead and emboss them. So I'll be right back after I do that. Okay, so to emboss these little words, I used the Weathered Wood Distress Embossing Glaze. And I'm going to make a little cluster out of this little scrap piece of lace that I have and a scrap of the fabric that's just sitting here, all lost and forlorn. So we'll give it a home. Are any of you out there bird watchers? We have a lot of birds come into our yard, mostly birds that are just, typical for where we live, but I really enjoy watching them. I know a lot of people aren't real excited about crows or ravens, but they're actually my favorite birds because they're so intelligent and so much fun to watch. But these birds that I'm using from this book from South Africa, I've never been to South Africa. I don't expect to go to South Africa, so I don't mind using it. Finish inking up this side. And then maybe we could give it a stamp. But doesn't that look good? I love that. I love the way that came out. I rounded the corners a little bit, but I think I want to give this a little bit of a stamp. Well, since they're birds, why not airmail? My poor desk is such a mess right now. Oh my word. I should use my stamp platform for this, but there, perfect. Okay. Now I'm really happy with the way this has turned out, but I have some other ideas for using this, so I am going to put this in the book right there, so that, oh, I love the way, I love that. So that, yeah, this is coming along super, super well. Okay, so that's another use for the fabric, is to use it as a hinge, and of course clusters and tabs and flip ups and stuff like that. But I have another project that I want to do, and then I'll probably finish putting the book together and think about maybe embellishing it a little bit later. My husband is informing me that breakfast is ready, so I shall be back later, but it's coming along. But what I'm going to do next, I wanted to make the cover a little bit wider, so I took a strip of this other Chindi fabric. Look at that, isn't that gorgeous? Is it showing up? All these different colors in here, so pretty. And I just sewed the ends down and then glued it in here just to give it a little bit more length, because there's lace on some of these other pages and I wanted it to cover it up, and also it just adds a really nice touch. So I'm going to do that to the other side too, but I also want to add a pocket in front, or on the inside of the cover. So we'll work on that as soon as I get back. So, ta-ta for now. Okay, let's go ahead and get started, and this journal is getting to the point of being almost done. So before I attach this piece to the edge here, I'm going to sew the edges down just to kind of anchor them in place. And before I do that, I'm going to put a couple little spots of glue here on the edges just to kind of keep it from running away with me when I'm sewing, because the fabric, as you can see, is kind of wrinkled and doesn't really want to lay real flat. But that's okay. I can work with that. Actually, I think its wrinkle is part of its charm. I wish I felt the same way about me. Wrinkles are charming. Okay, so I've sewn down the edge, and Also, one of the things that I forgot to mention is that you probably want to sew down or turn under the ends of the fabric and sew that down so that you don't have all these frayed bits coming out over the top and the bottom. And that's super simple to do. You just turn it under like that and then fold it. And you can glue it down, whatever you want to do, but it's just a good idea if you don't want those frayed edges to give it a little bit of a finish on the end. Okay, so now I'm just going to glue it here and then work on the pocket. And this raw edge here and here will be covered after I put the pocket on. And you can see, you know, the raw edges of this particular fabric just really likes to fray. But, you know, I do have some fray check that I can put around the edges later on if I want to. So that, I just really like the way that looks. I think it brings out the colors here and the flowers is kind of, oh, what color is this anyway? I don't know, but it's really pretty. Kind of a wine color. Okay, so we'll set that aside. And I just have this strip of scrap cardstock that I'm going to use as a pocket. I'm going to glue it to the back. Well, I'll show you. I'm going to wrap it around to the back of this piece of cardstock. Just using some Fabri-Tac. Like that. And on this side too. So, you know, it doesn't have to be perfectly straight or anything like that, but when you see what I'm going to do with it, you'll get more of an idea of what's going on. Okay, so it looks like it's super loose, and it is, but that's okay, because what I'm going to do is sew right down the center of it. Now the ends actually are going to be covered, so rather than try to wrap it around, I'm just going to glue it down here on the ends, just to kind of hold it down. And same here. Okay, so I'm just going to mark the center and just sew straight down the center here. Okay, so I've got that sewn down the center. Now I'm going to place it on here to make sure that it's in the center of the journal. And I'm going to glue it down on 3 sides and in the middle to form 2 pockets, one on each side of the inside of the cover. Okay, then the last step for this is to take some of this lace, if I can find the end of it. Here we go. And to cover up the edges like that. Oh, that's so pretty. Okay, so that is the journal cover finished. And the journal itself, the next step will be just to sew it in, and then later on I can add any pockets or end tags and anything else that I want. So I'll be right back with the thread and we'll sew it together. Okay, I am ready to sew in the signatures. So actually I just need to adjust this one a little bit. And I'm not going to measure or anything like that. And I'm just going to go ahead and sew. Now this is a little thread waxer, and I got it at Joann Fabrics. I don't always use it, but I'm using this string from the rug to sew in the signatures with. So I just thought it'd be a good idea just to wax it up a little bit. And all you do is you just pull it through like that. I'm putting it in the little slot and then it rubs up against the wax. So that should just make it go in a little bit easier. Using a needle with a big eye and kind of a blunt tip. All right, so I'm just going in through the center, roughly. Like I said, I'm not measuring. I'm just pushing my needle through. And actually, I might go ahead and use the awl. I might have just a few too many pages and things like that in here. So one there, roughly in the center, one maybe an inch or so down from the top, and one about an inch from the bottom. If I'm putting in more than one signature, I definitely use a template. Okay, beginning again. Oh, maybe it would help if I had, okay, we're gonna start this again. Okay, so obviously I need the cover because that would just be dumb. Okay, so going back through the holes, this time also through the cover. Oh, heavens to Murgatroyd. It has been a day. All right, here we go. Now we can put the needle through. And just go through the center. And I'm assuming most of you that are watching know how to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, but in case you don't, you go in through the middle first, and then you try to find the hole that you made that went through all the way through the one from the top. And sometimes you can't, so we're going to define it a little bit better. There we go. All right, so through the hole at the top, and then through the hole at the bottom. And then you want to go back through the center, but you want to have a tail on either side of the center string. So you just, put the needle through as close as you can. There we go. And then this is the time you want to even up your strings because obviously we have a little equality problem there. And I have more string than I needed, but usually what you want to do is you want to measure your string about 3 times the height of your journal for a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. And then you just tie them off, tie a knot. Now, I will eventually trim these strings, but I'm not going to do it right now because I'm going to probably put some charms on the end. But what I want to do first is go ahead and cover this section of the spine. And for that, I'm just going to open it up flat. And I've got this last little piece of the Chindi fabric. And what I'm going to do is just put some fabric tack on there and get my smoosher. Do you guys have a smoosher? I have a dedicated smoosher. This is my smoosher. And it came with my Cricut, back when I got my first Cricut. Seems like 100 years ago now. And it's really good for smooshing things like this. I don't know what it's really supposed to be for. But I have found it incredibly useful for smooshing. And by smooshing, I'll show you what I mean. I just kind of put the fabric on there and smoosh it into the shape that I like. And a lot of times I'll leave it long so that I can smush it up as much as I want. But this particular piece is just about the right length, so there's really not a lot of smushing going on. But I can smush along the sides, and the reason I like to use this little thing is because sometimes the Fabri-Tac seeps through and gets all over my fingers, and then the fabric sticks to my fingers. And then my smushing becomes less than 100% successful. My husband's on his way to Costco right now, which is very close to Joann Fabrics, and he has a 40% off coupon because my husband's awesome and he has the app on his phone as well. So we double up on stuff when we go. We double up on like the 40 and 50% off coupons. We just go through the line separately and know it's not cheating because he's a customer too. So it doesn't say one coupon per household, it says one coupon per app. So we go ahead and double up, and he helps me that way. And sometimes we get stuff for him there, like for models and stuff. Okay, so this is done enough for right now. I will probably finish embellishing it any way that I want, you know, maybe add some pockets and things like that, or some tags. But for now, I'm going to call this done because look at how cute that is. I just love the way these pockets came out. But I'll make some tags and do some further embellishing, and then do a final flip through. So, but I think there's something more that I can do with the Chindi fabric. And I'm thinking about making a pouch for this journal out of the Chindi fabric. But so I'm going to do that in a separate video. So I hope you enjoyed this and got inspired and got some new ideas and different ways to use the Chindi fabric. The one thing I will say is that compared to sari silk, it's definitely more readily available because you can get the rugs at Walmart. And some other places too. I've heard people saying that they've been getting them at a place called Five Below, which I've never heard of that. So we don't have those around here, at least, you know, in Western Washington. But if you've got, you know, one of those places near you, check it out. So it's more readily available, and it's really cost effective because I still have about half of the rug left, and I have a big fabric grocery bag full of these fabric strips that I can use in many different ways. So I'm going to go ahead and call this a wrap for now. I hope you enjoyed it. We used the fabric to make some embellishments and tabs. I used some here to decorate this corner tuck. We added some pockets and used it to cover the inside. Oh, also the advantage to this over sari silk is that it's wider and you can use it in more things. So you have more of it. And it's beautiful fabric. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got inspired. Please, if you did, give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe too if you haven't already. And hit the notification bell so that you know when I upload new content. So thanks everybody. Be sure to let the serendipity find you wherever you go. Happy crafting, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks everybody. Bye bye.